And for Thursday's market review, here is Temple Ashaju. Temple, the bulls read their faces yesterday at the market. What happened?
Well, we're saying investors still continue to pick up the low valuations that we have in the markets because, again, these whole sole remote trading, as we find in the system right now, is really contributes in a lot to the system. And that's why we've seen investors continue to take advantage of what we have, in the markets. Again, we've got the banking stocks all looking still cheap at this point in time. You're saying investors also, coming in to do more of bargain hunting. If you look at what we had critically yesterday, more of them were basically bargain hunting in the system. So all of that led to some 15 billion naira worth of gains on the equity capitalization of the market yesterday, as we see that the all-share index of the market remains intact at 21,000 plus. And of course, that represents some 13 basis points addition or gains in the market. Equity capitalization still settled at 11.34 trillion naira. In terms of the volume of transaction, it was a decline from what we had again yesterday by some 26% in terms of the value of the transactions, which we have at 1.88 billion naira compared to what we did the previous day. There's a decline of some 16%. Now, look at the deals. It remains around 3,000, which is 3,542 for yesterday alone. Of course, the banking sector, as I said earlier, did about 6% in terms of gains. All of the banking tier one names in the banking system actually did so well yesterday. Union Bank, for example, was up some 10%. Access Bank was up by more than 8%. You also have FBN Holdings looking very attractive. Zenith Bank, Guarantee Trust Bank, all of these main banks that you have under the banking sector did so well and closed very positively yesterday based on bargain hunting, as we've seen in the system. I should also say that the market breadth was really positive because if you look at what Zenith Bank did in terms of the volume of transaction, they contributed some 41 million units of its shares to the entire transaction that we saw in the markets yesterday. For the market breadth, we saw that United Capital made a comeback. Was up yesterday. Was the highest trading stock in the market. But Nestle, which falls under the consumer goods side of the market, was down by 10% yesterday to 765 naira. And as you said, that the year-to-date performance of Nestle is now 47%, and it is currently trading at a discount of some 51.58% to its year high of 1,580 naira, and this was what contributed to the 4.61% decline that we have under the consumer goods segment of the market. One of the major stocks that also contributed to the negative performance that we saw under this sector yesterday was Nigerian Breweries. This is a consumer goods giant that used to trade at a support level of 124 naira some 1-2 years ago, but it is now doing some 24 to 25 naira in the market. For the industrial goods segment of the market, a 16 basis points decline yesterday owing to some sort of profit taking on WAPCO. WAPCO the day before had actually recorded some gains, and some folks that had actually locked down funds in that segment did their calculations and realized that that was enough of profit for them. So they took profit on this particular segment of this particular counter, and it declined by some 2.11% and contributed to this level of decline. And the insurance space continues to see a kind of seesaw approach. We saw yesterday the name insurance had some more than 9% increase in its share price, and of course Law Union and Rock also performed very well yesterday. Wapik Insurance, which is now at some 21-22 kobo per share, also did some 8% gain yesterday and contributed to this 1.89% gain. Oil and gas segment of the market, there's really nothing to celebrate in that sector. O&O continued to actually push the segment down. It was the only company that actually experienced a decline yesterday, 2.27%. Every other companies or counters that you have on that space actually remained intact. There was basically no movement. For the unlisted security side of the markets, it was unchanged. You got a 692.71 psychological position, and of course the capitalization is still at 508.84 billion naira. Now, in terms of volume, the total you have here is just 100,380 actually, and that's because in terms of the volume of transactions that we have there, NDEP, that's Niger Delta Exploration Production Company, did some 380 units or thereabouts. Then you have a Trust Bond Mortgage Bank, which is going through some kind of recapitalization exercise or some sort of buy-in and buyout at this point in time, also doing 100,000 units. So all of the deals that we had yesterday, 2 deals on Trust Bond, and of course 1 deal on Niger Delta Exploration Production Company. Now for the fixed income space, things continue to be cold in this segment of the market. Investors continue to trade very, very cautiously. Yesterday we saw that those that couldn't participate at the midweek bond auction of the DMO, where some 50 billion naira were offered, actually found a way to come back to the secondary side of the market, where you have higher yields and lock down some funds. If you look at the 27th of April 2023 security, which is now 107, was actually trading at 104 naira 4 kobo before. But if you look at the other side of things, July 2021, which is at the short end of the curve, some folks actually sold down there. It is now 109 naira, moving down all the way from 112. And of course, that's the level of trends that we continue to see across board, where even the almost space as well, investors continue to do more of the median side of things, as we have just 22 deals there. And the September 2020 paper was at 15%, all the way from 15.5%, Chimezie.
All right, Temple, we'll get back to you shortly for an outlook for next week. Or we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we do an opening call to London. So stay with us. Let's get back to Temple for outlook for next week at the equities market. Temple.
Yes, well, given what we have actually seen in the fixed income space, as Ufioma just alluded now, we're seeing a bit of mild activity in the space, and everyone is cherry picking on papers and bills with opportunities. It is all linked, or can all be attributed to the less pressure that we're beginning to see from the foreign portfolio investors. Again, don't forget that recently we saw an adjustment in the foreign exchange space, where the naira to dollar now becomes of 380 naira per dollar, even though at the investors and exporter window yesterday we saw naira dipping by some 5 naira 28 kobo. It is all expected. That is because we've seen foreign portfolio investors that are kind of cashing out and trying to do a bit of dividend repatriation eventually. So this is a given now. But what we are saying from that space is giving a bit of confidence to the markets, both at the equity space and, of course, the debt side of the market. Even though we know that so far this week we've seen some 1.99% week-to-date decline, but barring any sort of decline or sell down on large cap stocks, what we should be seeing going forward will be more of mixed sentiment in the system, and of course some sort of bargain hunting on so many of the counters that have actually dropped. If you look at stocks that got like 100 naira share price at this point in time, like MTN, the next month, April, they will actually be paying out a dividend of 4 naira plus. Of course, the qualification date for that period is 17th of April. So you see investors, locking in interest in all of this coming up next week.
All right, thank you very much, Temple. The watchword should be safety. Let's continue to remain safe as we try to deal with this COVID-19.